What's going on, everyone? TC Tykilla here, and we are back for Pac-12 predictions for Week 4 of the college football season. If you like these, definitely like this video and subscribe. Follow me on Twitter at TC Tykilla. Go check out my Reddit where I have all the top 25 picks against the spread as well as straight up, and the Pac-12 picks as well. There, they will be in my comments. My username is TC Tykilla. Go subscribe to the CFB subreddit if you don't already. This week in the Pac-12, we have 4 byes, so not a whole lot going on. We have 7 games, 1 conference game, which is sure to be a doozy. So I'm putting these both together this week, all one conference, no separate division videos, and this week I'm also not going to be doing any order of power rankings since there's only going to be 7 teams. I don't know, we'll just wait until next week when there's not as many byes and we have more teams, and we should be getting into conference schedules next week, so it will be more exciting and I'll have more to judge after that and after this week as well. Not too challenging of a schedule this week. Last week was a good test for the team for the Pac-12. We played 4 games against the Big Ten, went 3-1 against them, arguably with the controversial ASU Wisconsin game. But this week, not a whole lot on the table. We have 1 really good game in Arizona State and Stanford. We have 2 games against the Mountain West, 1 game against an FCS team, and then 3 games against Independence. So not a whole challenging schedule, but some of those teams that we do play against our lower tier Pac-12 teams. So there are going to be some good games this weekend, but it would be awesome to see us go 6-0 out of conference and keep our momentum going on into the Pac-12 conference play, and then hopefully in a bowl season we can get some good wins against Big 12, Big 10, SEC even, and really boost our national perception. Anyway, let's start off with that FCS game. That is my Washington Huskies. Last week went to Illinois and beat on the Illini. 31-24 was the final score. Let them come back in the game close after going up 21 points in the third quarter. Bishop Sankey leads the nation at 184 yards rushing per game. 3rd in the nation in third down conversions for the Huskies, and this should be just a tune-up heading into Pac-12 play. The Bengals of Idaho State are 2-0, but again, they are an FCS team. Back at Husky Stadium for this one. I don't know how long the starters will play. I don't know if we'll be racking up points or just mainly focusing on game plan and kind of execution and getting all the details ready. The spread was pretty high, 49. I don't exactly know who Idaho State played or how they look, but I'm giving Washington the edge even against that high spread. And I'm going 59-6, and that might be a little bit of a mistake, but I'm just going with my gut feeling. Washington rolled on Portland State last season. It was like 63 or 59-14, so they are capable of blowing out teams in the FCS. Moving on to the Mountain West games, 2 of those this week. Oregon State travels to San Diego State, coming off a bye, 0-2. The Beavers coming off that overtime win at Utah, so they prove they can win on the road. They are 2-1 on the season with their only loss in week 1 to FCS team, and San Diego State has a loss to an FCS team as well in week 1. And then went to Columbus the weekend before last to play the Buckeyes. Oregon State right now leads the nation in pass yards at 438.7 yards per game. And interestingly enough, that is also tied for first with Cal. So kind of weird how they got the same exact number, but nonetheless they do. San Diego State has allowed 40 points. Or they allowed the 40 points to that FCS team in week 1. So hopefully Sean Mannion and company will be able to pass all around the yard on this one. Sean Mannion having a great season so far, 95 for 131, and that's 73% completion ratio and percentage, I should say. And 1,237 yards on the season and 12 touchdowns. If they did not lose to Eastern Washington in week 1, they would probably be looking pretty dangerous. I know they had not their best game against Hawaii or against Utah last week, but Utah seems to be improved. greatly, and they went on the road last weekend and got that win in the first overtime. I'm going with Oregon State on this one. 41-28. I think San Diego will put up some points, but Sean Mannion and Oregon State is just too strong for these guys, but they are on the road, so who knows? Oregon State has some times where they can be very uncharacteristically, if that's a word. Our next Mountain West matchup this week has the Aggies of Utah State coming to the Coliseum to face USC. USC finally gets some momentum last week with naming Cody Kessler the starting quarterback, and they rolled over Boston College 35-10. Can they keep that momentum going in Cody Kessler's full second game as starter? Utah State looking pretty good. They did have that opening week loss to Utah, but stayed competitive throughout, and they beat Weber State last weekend, I think 63-7, somewhere around there, pretty close to the Utah-Weber State game. They do have quarterback Chucky Keaton, who is a dual threat, and he leads an offense that is scoring 50 points per game right now. So definitely going to be a huge test for that improved USC defense. Looking pretty good so far. Not allowing teams to score more than 14 on the young season. 17 maybe. I forgot. Hawaii scored 14 or 17, but they held Washington State to 3 points offensively, and then Boston College the 10 last week. So I'm going with USC 31-16 in this one. Should be a close game going into the fourth. Just the defense is too good for USC to lose in this one. And having Cody Kessler finally getting some rhythm and momentum going into this game helps their offense a little bit more. 31-16 USC over Utah State. Moving on to the 3 Pac-12 games that involve independence. We're going to start at Washington State versus Idaho. Washington State coming off a big win against Southern Utah to kind of iron out some details of their game plan. They will do the same this weekend against Idaho before playing more Pac-12 football. And Idaho State has not been looking good so far. I think last week they lost to North Texas. If I'm remembering correctly, the game was 35-25. Washington State had that big win against USC a couple weeks ago, but didn't look especially good doing it. Can they put on a good performance that shows that they are ready to compete in the Pac-12 North? Idaho, like I said, not a very good team. I think Washington State will roll. The spread is pretty high. It's around 31 points right now. I got Washington State 42-10. Connor Holiday needs to make sure he gets his completions, just go through his progressions, and not throw interceptions. They just need to take care of the ball, and they should have an easy time against Idaho. In this rivalry game, their school is separated by 7-ish miles. Moving on to number 13, UCLA. They play New Mexico State, which is 0-3. New Mexico State is last in points against at 47.3 points per game, and 114th in points for at 16.3. So definitely on paper, this looks like a blowout. UCLA is 7th in points for at 49.5. Jordan James looks to be the new replacement for Jonathan Franklin. He has 43 carries for 260 yards and 2 touchdowns. That averages about 6.0 yards per carry right now. And another tune-up game for the Pac-12 as we go into conference play. That seems to be a big focus right now. Hopefully it doesn't stay like this over the next few years as the playoff system comes in and strength of schedule gets kind of emphasized. We need to be able to not play maybe rough games where we're going to get beat, or there's a good chance we're going to get beat, but play teams that do have a little bit of a pulse and are kind of competitive instead of these games against New Mexico State, Idaho, San Diego State. I mean, people thought San Diego State was going to be good, but New Mexico State hasn't really been good. Idaho hasn't been good lately. So hopefully that changes in the next few seasons instead of just cupcake games. We don't want to become the SEC here on the West Coast. I got UCLA winning that one 56-12. The next game, one of the bigger games of the weekend, a rivalry game in the Holy War, Utah at BYU. I think I just read this morning that these schools are separated by about 45 miles, and BYU at home, it showed what they can do against Texas a couple weeks ago. Utah has Travis Wilson and the new spread offense that has been working pretty good. They unfortunately didn't get that win at home against Oregon State last weekend, a close game there. Definitely still some potential here and some hope for the Utes as they go to BYU and take on the Cougars in Provo. BYU kind of looking up and down with that opening loss to Virginia and then that big win against Texas a couple weekends ago. I'm liking BYU at home. It's just difficult place to play, and we have not seen Utah on the road yet. So I'm going with a BYU win, 30-24, and Utah looks good doing it, but they still get the loss. Now, going on to this week's pretty much game of the weekend, Arizona State, number 23 ranked, against number 5 Stanford. And this one's going to be a huge game for both teams, obviously. Arizona State needs to come in and prove that last weekend was not a fluke. Stanford's defense is going to be better than Wisconsin. Can they move the ball against Stanford? They did move the ball against Wisconsin last weekend, but Stanford is another animal. Arizona State kind of needs redemption from all the controversy and kind of just being called out that they aren't as good as where they are ranked right now. Kelly has 352 yards last weekend versus Wisconsin. Probably not going to be able to move the ball as much this week against Stanford, but I think a Stanford cornerback is out, so that is a little good news for Arizona State and Taylor Kelly. On the Stanford side, they haven't really looked tremendous the past 2 weeks in their 2 wins against San Jose State and Army, but you could probably chalk that up to being conservative and not really showing all their playbook. But they're going to come out firing against this Arizona State team, one of the harder challenges for them in their cross-division games. They got their back Tyler Gaffney. He has 40 carries on the season for 236 yards and 3 touchdowns. And Kevin Hogan's only thrown 45 balls this year. I think Kelly threw that last game. But he already has 5 touchdowns. And as far as I saw, I think Stanford, they had 40 carries with Gaffney, 45 throws with Hogan, a couple throws with a backup, and then a couple runs with a couple other guys. So they've only had about 105, 110 plays I saw. I mean, that is 2 games, but that seems pretty low, 50-ish plays per game. I don't know, maybe that's just their clock management, and they're going to need that this weekend against this up-tempo Arizona State. Finally, Arizona State's traveling away from home after a bye and 2 home games against Sacramento State and Wisconsin. I'm going with a Stanford victory this weekend, and I think it's going to be pretty close, but obviously I think Stanford is better defensively, and that will win it for them. I have Stanford winning 27-24, so fairly close game. Arizona State's going to have a chance, and so hopefully it will be an okay weekend with the games we have in the Pac-12. Only 2 real, 3 competitive games. The other 4 should be blowouts, and then we'll be going into Pac-12 play next week. A good game on the horizon. Washington and Arizona, and Oregon and Cal are my 2 games that I'm looking forward to next weekend. Thanks once again, and like and subscribe if you like it.